Hello and welcome to part 2 of our V8 Sigma build. In this episode I'm going to show you wiring, exhaust and thermo fans. The thermo fans is a bit interesting because I had a lot of trouble getting the right thermo fans. Anyway, let's get on with it. I'm at that stage now where I'm doing the wiring. So I've got a lot of the ECU wiring done. I've got a little bit more to hook up yet, including the thermo fans. Now, I decided that as long as I'm going to do the thermo fans, I may as well get them mounted onto the radiator. And that's where I ran into a whole lot of trouble. Now, I was going to use the super duper Radiator fans. 225 watt motor, gigantic big motor on them, a really good fan. But for some reason, Radiator has decided to put this funny mounting on the top of the fan, whereas most other fans just have this flat across the top. You push the screws in, they're already made the right size for the 10mm heads on the 6mm screws, and just a flat piece goes across the top. And you can see that here. There's just a piece of angle line running along the top, and they screw in. But Radiator's decided to put these up at an angle and they just don't fit. The other thing is that I've only got a limited amount of room across the width of my radiator, and these 12-inch Radiator fans actually measure 13 inches. These 12-inch fans measure 12 inches. So by the time I put two of them on there, I'm way over the outside of the radiator. So I can't use my impressive performance Radiator fans, which is a real shame. So I bought some fans, and I bought them off eBay, off a reputable dealer, and they were 160 watt fans. That's what they were advertised as. When they got here, I decided to test them. Now, I have a little test rig that I've built that measures the amps. Now, I don't expect everybody to know Ohm's law, but it really is quite simple. If you know the volts and you know the amps, you can work out how many watts it is, because it's just amps times volts. So these 130 watt fans that I bought only drew less than 5 amps. 5 12s are 60, that's 60 watts. Not 160, that's just 60 watts. Rang the company up and they said, yeah, just send them back. They were really good about it. They gave them my money back. But the frustration is in getting the thing that you've ordered. So then I ordered another pair of fans from a big company. And in their literature, in their catalogue, they say these fans draw 10 amps. 10 amps over 12 volts, or really it's 13 volts, should be about 130 watts. So I ordered a couple of them. They were nearly $100 each by the time they landed here, so not a cheap fan. Got the fans, and they've got these tiny little motors on them. I tested those, and they made less than 6 amps. But okay, rounded off to 6 amps, 6 12s are 72. It's less than 80 watts. Again, a far cry from 130 watts that they're supposed to be. So, what do? How do you get a decent sized motor? Now, you can see, these are supposedly 90 watts. You can see how small that motor is. So what I decided to do was to buy these ugly red fans only because they had a decent sized motor on them. Again, they were supposed to be 160 watt motors. That's fine. These cost $50 each. I've robbed the motors out of them. This stuff is just junk. That's going in the rubbish bin. And then I've taken the little motor off the 12-inch fan and mounted the big motor on. Now, I've had to buy these fans and then these fans and swap the motors over to get a decent fan. But at least it's done. So now I'm going to mount these up to the radiator, put them through the big relay, and hopefully I'll have some decent fans. But I can promise you one thing. Whatever you see on eBay, whatever amps and watts they're telling you, they're lying to you. It's not real. So before you buy fans, contact the seller and make sure that you're going to get what they're advertising, because what they're advertising is not what they're selling. I'm at that stage now where The radiator's ready to go in. I've actually started on the extractors, but before the radiator could go in, I needed to paint the areas that I've modified on this car. And one of them, of course, is the new radiator support panel. So in order to do the paint, I had a couple of choices. I could get a painter in with spray gun and thinners and everything and pay him to do it. But what I'm really, really impressed with is this paint, which is 2K, or epoxy paint. So there's paint in there. You press the little button on the bottom and it releases a hardener. So you end up with 2-pack paint in an aerosol can. But I'm really impressed with the jobs that it's done, because I'm no painter, but this and the support panel and everything has just come out so well. Really good colour match. All I did was go down to Paint City, gave them the paint code off the car, and I think they were about $36. Bit of a bargain, really. I've got the radiator ready, bolted the fans on, I've got the big motors mounted up, and most of the wiring done. So that's pretty much ready to drop into the car. The other thing I'm really happy about is that all my anodizing parts have come back from John at Specialised Anodizing, and he's done a really, really nice job on this stuff. I made a little header tank for the radiator. That'll fit up in the corner of the mudguard there, so that turned out really nicely. And that's that new swirl pot that I had to make, a narrow one to clear the diff at the back. So I've just bolted the lift pump on. I've still got to bolt the main pump in, the high pressure pump, and that'll be ready to bolt up into the bottom of the car. So we'll get all that bolted in, and I'll show you what it looks like in the car. Most of the wiring's done now. There's a few little things we've still got to do, a little bit of tidy up and so forth. Computer's inside the car, not mounted yet, but it's inside the car. So now we're at that stage where we need to test it, because what you don't want to do is have everything hooked up, your fuel pumps and everything, and then start torturing on the starter and finding that it doesn't want to start. So what I like to do is to plug a distributor into the trigger wiring and then run it with a cordless drill. And that way you can see whether you've got spark, you can see whether you've got injectors. If all of that works and the fuel pump relay turns on everything, then you can put it all together with a certain amount of certainty that it's going to start when you do turn the key. So that'll be the next step. I'll get a dizzy, I'll get a cordless drill, and we'll give it a test. So I've got everything set up now for a test. I've got a test slide here hooked onto the output of the relay for the fuel pumps. So when that light comes on, that would be turning the pumps on. I don't want the pumps running yet. I've got a spark plug here hooked up to the coil, so we should be able to see the spark. And I've got a Noid test light here plugged into one of the injectors. So got my drill here. So I'll hook that up to the dizzy, give it a run, and we should have spark, we should have pump, we should have injectors. All right, everything's working. You can see the light flashing there for the injectors. You might be able to see the spark there, and our fuel pump relay's on. So everything's working as it should. So next step is to bolt everything on, and eventually we'll fire up. Next thing we've actually got to do is finish off the exhaust system. So I'll show you a bit more of that. It's time now to do the exhaust system. So I buy these eBay extractors. They're not the world's best extractors, but they fit reasonably well. They're stainless steel, and they're $324 landed here in my shop. Now, they're not a perfect fit. When you put them on, the collector here angles over and wants to hit the gearbox. So you've got to cut them off there, angle it across, weld it back on again. Now, I don't know how they get these to fit onto a Mustang or something like that, which is what they're advertised for, because even the top half here is not a perfect fit. So what I do is I cut them through here and here, not all the way through, just halfway through, give them a little bit of a bend, and then they fit perfectly. So not a lot of work. Most of the work's done for you, but as I say, for $324, bit of a bargain, really. I've bolted the extractors on, so now I've just got to get these header pipes on at the right angle. So this pipe was spearing across and wanted to hit the pan on the transmission. So I've cut that off, ground up the end of it and everything, and I'll be able to weld that back on in approximately that position there, and it'll come right through next to the gearbox. So that's worked out fairly well. Passenger side, again, that's worked out fairly well as well. Cut the collector off. The new modified collector will go on there, and I'll tack that on, and it'll pass on this side of the gearbox. So all in all, that's worked out fairly well. The exhaust is on the car now, the extractor's on. I've made up the crossover pipe here, catalytic converters mounted up. So next thing will be to tuck this muffler up into this little cavity here. It just barely fits, but it does actually fit in there. It's pretty tight in here with a 3-inch pipe. I mean, these are fairly little cars. So that'll be the next thing. One thing about exhaust pipes is, I don't know if you've ever gone to the exhaust shop and tried to buy some 3-inch pipe. My experience has been that the pipe arrives in the exhaust place as pipe and it comes out as gold. I wanted to buy just a short piece of pipe. I went to the exhaust shop and the guy's trying to tell me that it's $30 a foot for stainless steel 3-inch pipe. Are you kidding me? So what I did is I bought a 6-meter length from the stainless steel people, 6 meters, for about $150. So my advice would be, don't buy your pipe from exhaust people. Just go to the steel supplies and just buy a whole length. It's the cheapest way. Anyway, we'll get all of this exhaust on, and I'll show you what that looks like in the next video. So this is about it for now. Next time, we should have the motor running and the whole exhaust on. So see you in the next video.